So I have said this really from the beginning, that sooner or later Keir Starmer has to put out policies because he has to demonstrate to the people, to the voting public, this is what Labour stands for and this is what Labour will do. And constantly, even on our last Good Morning Walk, there was somebody who actually went, oh, Starmer can't do that because, the Tories can start trashing the policies already. Here's the thing. If those policies are good and worth fighting for, then it doesn't matter that the election is 3.5 years away. It doesn't matter that it's 6 months away. Those policies are worth fighting for and advocating for. That is what a political party is there and is meant to do. And even if these policies, as you say, were released 6 months out from a general election, the Tories and the media would still trash those policies. There is no difference them doing it 6 months before or 3.5 years before. And again, this helps people distinguish what it is the party stands for. And I really worry that Starmer is taking this stance of he's trying to out-Tory the Tories, and you can't do that because you can't out-Tory a Tory. You are in the Labour Party. And we saw, especially during the Corbyn years, these people who have championed Keir Starmer and said, oh, now we've got our party back. Well, okay, now you've got the party back. What are you actually going to do with it? And that is my question to these people. Now you have the power in the party. What are you actually going to use it for? Because it doesn't seem to me like you're going to use it properly. And if you're not going to use it properly, then expect to be challenged for it. So anyway, we're going to get into an article from The Independent today. And before we jump into that, please do remember to hit the like, share and subscribe buttons. And of course, down below there is a link to my Patreon page, as well as a one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, buy me a coffee. So, like I say, this comes from The Independent. The title is, Labour lacks a moral purpose. It is disconnected from the hardships of the pandemic. Well, that didn't last long. Within months, Keir Starmer has gone from wonderful to wobbly in the eyes of the same political commentators who championed his rise as the Labour leader last year. Once effused over Starmer's capacity to hold the government to account and show that Labour is serious about power, some supporters are now fretting over Labour's failing polls, which is understandable. Labour is lagging 13 points behind the government, while Starmer's favourability ratings are in negatives and voters prefer Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. Even right-wing columnists note that this is remarkable against a budding government that has overseen one of the world's highest COVID-19 deaths and the worst economic damage in the G7. Once praised by pundits and now delicately suggested that the Labour leader might set out a few policies or something, a vision that he actually believes. Yet, in the midst of a pandemic where Britain's grotesque inequalities are providing pathways for the virus, there is something even more palpable missing from Labour's approach. We aren't just looking at a party lacking policies or a coherent narrative, we're looking at a leadership that lacks a moral purpose. Weirdly, for a party leader who pledged not to use a crisis to score political points, Starmer's methodology smacks of calculated politicking. A decent-suited politician trying forensically to outsmart the Prime Minister is all very well, but it is exposing a lack of heart and the fury of a flurry that the avoidable perilous realities that are too many Britons face. Whether it be local leaders or health professionals or community organisers, those in touch with the current realities on the ground often speak with barely concealed rage at the situation and issues that demand for better with every word. And at every opportunity, statistically, Starmer has gone from being more briskly managerial approach. But the impression thus is created of a leader who will not stand up and speak for the millions currently in crisis. Some of the colliding horrors currently unfolding across the country include food and fuel poverty, spiraling household debt, looming evictions, fire and rehire practices, COVID safety failings in the workplace, a lack of financial help to self-isolate if necessary, struggles to access sick pay or even universal credit, job losses, collapsing small businesses and destitution caused by having what's deemed to be the wrong immigration status. Communities are dealing with wave after wave of tragic coronavirus deaths, disproportionately battering minority and deprived areas and claiming too many lives too soon. Thus, thanks to lockdown and a vaccine rollout, infection rates are now dropping nationwide, yet they linger across the Midlands, Northwest and Northeast. The areas of deprivation left to struggle where the rest of the country feels a glimmer of respite. The Labour leadership has certainly picked up on many of these issues, but few of these interventions have turned into full-blown or ongoing campaigns. Most of the recent timidity is showing up in rows over the NHS pay. Labour has fulsomely rejected the government's shameful 1% pay increase proposal and then suggested nudging it to only 2.1%, even though nursing unions are calling for much more. Labour is reluctant to commit to raising taxes and has left it completely vulnerable to the inevitable follow-up. How would you pay for it? That's a consequence of failing to argue on a principle that the nation's most wealthy should pay a little extra in tax to help those most in need, especially during the pandemic, which wealth gaps have widened even more. If Labour does believe in tackling Britain's devastating inequalities, the leadership has a very odd way of showing it. The disconnect is in part a product of the fractious relationship between party leadership and the membership, which has cut off the essential blood support of its grassroots. With little to get their teeth into at a constituency party level, Labour activists are instead volunteering at food banks, mutual aid groups and other pandemic relief efforts. In these roles and rooted in their communities, members have a direct view of the terrible effects of the pandemic and witnessing the growing appetite for helping out collectively. Such insight has only reinforced the view that it is simultaneously self-defeating and imposing and insulting to suppose, as the Labour leadership seem to have done, that hardship on the ground might be mollified with the waving of a few British flags. Currently bunkered off from its membership, the leader's office may get a very rude awakening at the party conference later this year, when motions and meetings could force a reckoning over how to persuasively stand up for the very communities that Labour was set up to represent. With the Labour left now sidelined, the politicians and officials who spent 5 years lamenting Jeremy Corbyn's leadership have certainly got their party back. But what on earth did they actually want it back for? It's hard to divine a goal beyond simply being in charge, and this looks a lot like power for the sake of power, lacking any greater energy or guiding force or sense of commitment or even a moral purpose. And if polls are anything to go by, the public can see right through it. And this is why I joined Labour. I think there is a serious problem currently in the leadership, and we are seeing how Jeremy Corbyn was so effective. Jeremy Corbyn had amazing numbers when, especially among like the youth, and actually engaging voter turnout. He actually managed to, even though he lost that particular election in the 2017 election, he actually got the highest voter turnout for Labour that they had ever seen. And that's not only that, he engaged the youth vote on such a massive level that no other party has ever even seen before in even recent times. So there is a lot to be learned from the Corbyn era, and just throwing it away and ignoring like the grassroots is a stupid way to go about it. And I really do hope that they change elections, especially, like I say, at the upcoming party conference this year, because I am now a Labour member. I will obviously probably won't be able to go to it because I think it will probably be virtual. But I have to say, I'm actually looking forward to going to my very first Labour Party conference. I think that will be quite fun. Maybe I'll try and hold in fact, I might actually try and do that. I might try and see if I can't set up a fringe event. That might be quite fun. I don't know how I'd go about doing it, but again, that might be quite fun to do. So, as always, thank you for watching. Please do remember to hit that like and share button. That always does help out the channel. Also, if you want to help out the channel in a different way, then have a look down below. There is a link to my Patreon page, as well as a one-off donation link. And thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.